About the runway that Republicans now have to play with, not only controlling both chambers of Congress, the White House, conservative Supreme Court. How consequential is that moving forward?
Well, we'll know shortly. Keep in mind, there's only one legislative priority. A lot of what the Trump team wants to do, they'll be able to do through the executive branch. That's typical for any administration. But they need to have the legislature pass the tax bill, the extension of the 2017 Trump tax cuts. That is priorities number 1, 2, and 3 for the incoming administration. It's still going to be very difficult to pass. You've got a very narrow margin in the House. You're going to have to figure out a way to use reconciliation to get around the filibuster in the Senate. It's going to be very complicated. It's going to be very difficult. But we'll know 6 months from now whether or not this trifecta has translated into dramatically different policy in Washington, D.C.
Speaking of legislation being passed and the difficulty of it, Chris, do Democrats have any chance of passing anything on their agenda that doesn't have bipartisan support for the next few years?
Well, I think when the Congress is as closely divided as it is right now, particularly in the Senate, you need bipartisan support to pass anything, unless they completely blow up the Senate, which, you know, is a possibility, frankly, the way things are going and what we're hearing. So I think that bipartisanship to get bills passed is going to be a must. I mean, they're going to need at least a couple of Democratic votes all the time. You got a House of Representatives now that's going to be so evenly divided. You know, 1 or 2 votes either way could really swing things, particularly if people are leaving or absent or sick. I wouldn't count out the Democrats picking up one of these seats that Trump takes for his cabinet. I mean, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, first got elected in a deep red seat in a special election in upstate New York, very similar district to Elise Stefanik's district. Mm-hmm. So I would be very careful. If there is chaos in the first 100 days of the Trump administration, like there was the last time he took office, you could see those seats flipping back to Democratic hands. And a 3-vote majority or a 2-vote majority becomes a 1-vote majority. And I think that's a very difficult thing for anybody to manage. So we'll see. Yeah.
You bring up Stefanik, and Mick, I wanted to ask you about that as well. Republicans keeping the House majority, but now at least 2 Republicans in the House are being nominated to President-elect Trump's cabinet. Stefanik, you've got Waltz. So what does that mean with the party's margins so slim already? And are you surprised he's making those choices?
I'm not surprised. These are good folks that are going to be good on the topic. They're loyal to him. Especially Stefanik is good on television, which he really likes, so he'll be sending her up to the UN, which is a high-profile position. But come to the House control, which Tom Dempsey talked about, Chris mentioned. Look, there will be a period of time, this interim between their confirmation, I'm talking about Walz and Stefanik now, their confirmation and the special election where the margins may be narrower. But that's about it. Look, I bet Chris in the World Series, I won. I bet him in the election, I won. I'll bet him on these 2 special elections. The Republicans are going to win. It's a Republican +9 district, I think, in New York, which is almost a safe seat. And the one in Florida is even more Republican.
Yes.
Absolutely a safe seat. So,
well, Chris, we'll see if you can get one win against Mick somehow.
Hey, look, I'm not betting on those. I'm not betting on those districts. I'm just telling you what happened in the past. Kathy Hochul won a Republican +9 district in a special election right after an election. So let's be very careful what happens. A little different circumstances. The Republican member resigned in disgrace, but it is not undoable in a state where Democrats have a lot of resources and a lot of ability to put a good candidate up in that race there. So I'd be worried about that if I was Mike Johnson.
And Chris, just let me play one more bit of sound talking about, you know, seats getting flipped here. Republican Gabe Evans, who just flipped his Colorado House district, recently told me this on Morning in America. Take a listen.
So when I'm out knocking on doors and I ask folks, top of mind, what's the #1 issue that you're concerned about right now? I would say probably 90% of folks mention the border and the associated, when we know that not all migrants are committing crimes, but the associated crimes that come with it. And so folks see this, they know that there's a problem, and they're ready for a change. And that includes a very significant percentage of the Hispanic community.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, a lot of seats flipped, including in deep blue Colorado. So it's now time for Democrats to do what? And will we see Democrats kind of align more with Republicans' view of the border, if that's going to be a winning issue?
Yeah, look, I think Democrats have to figure out how to talk to working class Americans. Democrats did have a plan for the border. The Republicans shot it down. Democrats were not good at communicating what they wanted to see happen at the border. They got to do a better job at it. They got to be tougher on people coming across the border and committing crimes. I think that is a major issue that Democrats need to address.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.